Welcome to Heart Over Gold, the channel where love, kindness, and humanity shine brighter than any fortune. In today's story, Gabriel Hayes, the powerful CEO of Hayes Capital, was known for his cold precision and relentless ambition. But when a mistake led him into the wrong resort villa at the Emerald Coast, his carefully controlled world collapsed. Inside stood Valerie Reed, the woman he had once loved, and beside her were Thomas and Matthew, twin boys with his own green eyes, staring back at him. 7 years earlier, Gabriel had walked away, leaving Valerie to raise their children alone. Now fate had brought them together again, forcing Gabriel to confront the family he never knew and the love he thought he had lost. What began as an accident soon became a journey of redemption, as Gabriel fought not only to earn back Valerie's trust, but also to become the father his sons deserved. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments, and keep up with our latest stories. The CEO, the wrong room, and the family he never expected. Gabriel Hayes, head of the global powerhouse, Hayes Capital, carried himself with the calm authority of a man who always had control of the room. Tailored in a sleek dark suit and polished Italian shoes, he was the very image of influence. "Welcome, Mr. Hayes. Your private villa and meeting room are prepared," the staff greeted. Gabriel gave only a curt nod, his eyes focused on the glittering scenery around him. He hadn't come here for leisure. There was a multi-million-dollar deal on the line, and mistakes could not be tolerated. As he entered the resort's VIP section, he glanced at his assistant. "Review the schedule. Tomorrow's negotiation must go perfectly." That same afternoon, a cruise docked at the resort's pier. Among the guests was Valerie Reed, holding the hands of her 2 sons, 7-year-old twins, Thomas and Matthew. Valerie had saved tirelessly for years to give them this trip, not just a holiday, but a chance to experience a joy-filled life she felt they were missing. Watching happy families pass by, her heart ached with memories of what she had once hoped for, dreams lost when Gabriel, the father of her boys, had walked away without explanation. But this trip was about her children, not reopening old wounds. Fate, however, had other plans. On the second evening at the Emerald Coast Resort, golden lights shimmered on the still water, music floated in the air, and palm trees rustled in the breeze. Gabriel had just left a long negotiation session, irritation shadowing his face. Investors had demanded an unexpected clause, stalling the deal. Weary and distracted, he headed to his villa, unaware that a system error had given him the wrong key, still loosening his tie and running through numbers in his mind. He entered the villa without switching on the lights. The air was warm, scented with coconut and vanilla, far softer than he preferred. Then he froze. Valerie stood there. She was wearing a simple cream dress, her long hair tumbling down her back as she tucked her twins into bed. 2 little blonde, green-eyed boys, spitting images of Gabriel himself. His chest tightened as silence fell. Valerie's eyes locked on his. 7 years had passed since he vanished from her life, leaving her to raise the children alone. Her heart pounded as every memory, every wound resurfaced. Gabriel, usually a man in complete control, found no words. His world shook as a single question crashed into his mind. Were these children his? "Why are you here?" Valerie's voice trembled. Gabriel swallowed hard, unable to answer. Finally, he managed. "Are they mine?" Her pain flared as she whispered firmly, "Get out." When he hesitated, she repeated, louder this time, "Out." Gabriel backed toward the door, his voice breaking. Why didn't you tell me? Valerie laughed bitterly. So you could disappear again. You chose to leave, Gabriel. You never came back. So why does it matter now? He had no reply. Head bowed, he walked out into the night. The resort sparkled under the starlight, but in two opposite villas, neither Gabriel nor Valerie slept. Memories kept them awake of London, where they first met during a business conference. Gabriel had swept her off her feet with his charm, intelligence, and promises whispered under the city lights. She had believed in their future, believed in love. Then, overnight, it was gone. He left for Asia, promising it was temporary, and never returned. Valerie had waited, written, called, until all contact vanished, and then she discovered she was pregnant. Fear and loneliness filled her, but when she looked at the test, she realized she wasn't alone. Thomas and Matthew became her strength. She carried them through every hardship, every sleepless night, and brought them into the world without him. Meanwhile, Gabriel had buried himself in work. He told himself walking away was necessary, that success mattered more. But now, staring at the twins who mirrored his own childhood face, the weight of those lost years pressed on him. The following morning, Valerie forced a smile at breakfast while her boys played, though her heart was unsettled. Gabriel, in his boardroom, wore his usual suit, but couldn't focus, his mind still trapped in the night before. Whispers spread quickly through the resort. An employee had seen Gabriel enter Valerie's villa, and soon rumors of a hidden family buzzed among guests and staff. Within hours, a blurry photo of Gabriel leaving her villa made its way online, igniting speculation. Did Gabriel Hayes have secret children? Valerie's phone lit up with messages. Friends and colleagues wanted answers. Fear gripped her, not for herself, but for Thomas and Matthew. She began packing hurriedly to leave, but before they could escape, Matthew fell ill. His small body burned with fever, and he collapsed. Valerie screamed his name as panic overtook her, and then Gabriel appeared, rushing to her side. Without hesitation, he scooped Matthew into his arms and sprinted to the resort clinic. For the first time, his wealth, his empire, his pride meant nothing. Only the fragile life of a boy who might be his son mattered. Doctors worked quickly. Valerie stayed by Matthew's side, whispering prayers. Gabriel lingered at the door, fists clenched, helpless tears in his eyes. Hours felt like eternity until finally the doctor reassured them. It was severe heat stroke, but he would recover. Relief flooded both parents as they watched Matthew stabilize. In that moment, Gabriel realized the truth he had missed: their first words, their first steps, all for ambition. He had abandoned not only Valerie, but the family he never knew he had. The world outside buzzed with rumors, but inside that clinic, Gabriel's world had shifted forever. I made mistakes. Another silence. This time, his eyes looked directly into the camera. Today, I have discovered that those two children could be my sons. I don't have proof yet. There's no DNA test, but seeing them, being with them, I have no doubt. Murmurs filled the room, and I want to make something clear. It doesn't matter if the DNA confirms it or not, because from the moment I saw them, I knew I would do anything to protect them, to beam their lives. Journalists raised their hands, asked questions, but Gabriel only said, "There is no scandal here. There is only a man who lets something valuable go and is trying to make amends. The rest doesn't matter to me." And with that, he left the stage. Their flashes continued. Questions flew, but he had already said what was necessary. In the villa, Valerie sat in silence. Tears streamed down her face. She didn't know what to think. She didn't know if she could believe him. But that version of Gabriel was not the one she remembered. That night he knocked on the door again. "May I come in?" he asked, his voice low. Valerie hesitated. Then she opened it. The children were already asleep. "I'm not here to ask for anything," he said. "I just wanted to thank you for everything you've done for them." She looked at him, her arms crossed. "And now what? Are you going to live again?" "No, not this time. I'm not leaving. I'm not losing them again." Valerie watched him in silence. There was so much pain between them, so many years unspoken, so many words unsaid, but there was something different in his gaze, something sincere. "I don't know if I can trust you again, Gabriel," she told him. "I'm not asking you to trust me, just to let me try." And for the first time in a long time, Valerie did close the door. Let's play a little game for those who read the comments. Type the word hamburger in the comment section below. Only those who made it this far, Dan. Now, let's continue with the story. The following days at the resort were different. Gabriel was no longer just the executive, locked in meetings. Now he was seen walking with the children on the beach, helping them collect shells, running after them in impromptu games. He no longer wore formal suits, but comfortable, simple clothes. He was a changed man. Valerie observed everything with a mixture of awe and distrust. She saw him strive to connect with Theatwins without imposing himself. Gabriel asked for permission, asked if he could accompany them, spoke to them with affection and respect. He never tried to occupy a place he hadn't earned, but with every gesture, every look, every word, it was clear that he cared. One afternoon, Thomas and Matthew wanted to go to the pool. Valerie was tired and hesitated. Gabriel from the terrace noticed. "If you like, I can take them," he said in a calm voice. She looked at him, insolence. She hesitated. Then she nodded slowly. "All right, but be careful. Matthew is still afraid of the water." "I know," he replied, smiling. And so, minutes later, the three were in the resort pool. Gabriel got in first, and the children followed him. They played, laughed, splashed as if they had always been a family. Valerie watched them from afar, sitting on a lounge chair with a towel on her lap. Inside, her heart trembled, not out of fear of Gabrielle, but because of what she was starting to feel again. As night fell, Gabrielle returned with the children, tired, but happy. Matthew had fallen asleep. In his arms, Valerie opened the door, and seeing him like that, so protective, she couldn't help but feel her eyes water. "Thank you," she whispered without looking directly at him. "You don't have to thank me. I just want to be here." That night, while the children slept, Gabriel knocked on the balcony door. Valerie stepped out wrapped in a blanket with a cup of tea in her hands. "May is it?" she nodded. "Do you remember when we went to that cafe in London? The one with the red chairs?" Valerie barely smiled. "Yes, you said you wanted to write a book you never wrote." "I still have it in mind. What was it going to be about?" she asked, looking at him curiously. Gabriel hesitated a second. "About everything I didn't know how to say. About the things we leave unfinished." Valerie looked down. The silence between them was long, but not uncomfortable. For the first time in years, they shared a moment without reproach. Days passed, and the resort hosted its famous summer gala, a celebration where guests attended in formal attire to dine under stars. It was an exclusive event with a live orchestra, string lighting over the beach, and tables with white tablecloths spread across the sand. Thomas and Matthew were excited. They had seen posters and heard other children talk about the event. "Can we go, Mommy?" Thomas begged with pleading eyes. "Are we going to have fancy clothes like everyone else?" Matthew asked. Valerie hesitated. She didn't plan to attend, but her children were excited. Gabrielle, who overheard from the doorway, intervened. "If you want, I can take care of that." She looked at him with skepticism. "Nothing expensive," she clarified. "Just something simple." He smiled. "I promise." That night, Gabriel appeared with two folded small tuxedos and a simple but beautiful dark blue dress for Valerie. She received it with a mix of surprise and gratitude. It wasn't ostentatious or expensive, just right. As evening fell, they all got dressed. The twins were delighted with their outfits. Posing in front of the mirror, Valerie came out of the bathroom in her dress, and Gabriel, who was waiting on the terrace, was speechless. "You look incredible," he murmured. She looked down, blushing. "Thank you." They went down to the gala together. The atmosphere was magical. Soft music, golden lights, the murmur of the lake in the background. People looked at them, but no longer with morbid curiosity, but with admiration. They looked like a real family. At one point, the orchestra played a waltz. Gabriel approached. Extending his hand, "Dance." Valerie hesitated. Thomas and Matthew watched them with wide eyes. Finally, she accepted. They danced slowly under the lights. Neither said anything, but their bodies moved in perfect synchronicity, as if time hadn't passed. Gabriel looked at her tenderly. "I'm not seeking redemption. I just want to be part of this," he whispered. Valerie swallowed, feeling her shield cracking. "I don't know if I can forgive. I'm not asking you to. Just let me try." They continued dancing until the music ended. At the end of the night, the children hugged them happily. "It was the best night," Matthew shouted. "Can we come again?" Valerie smiled, hugging them. "Of course you can." That night, while the children slept soundly, Gabriel tucked them in carefully. Then her sat on the terrace alone, gazing at the starry sky. Valerie came out and sat beside him. "Today, everything seemed to be okay," she said. Gabriel felt her. "Yes, it was a good day. And tomorrow, what? Whatever you decide. If you ask me to leave, I will. But if you let me stay close, I won't go." She looked at him, insolence. Her heart was torn. There was so much pain, but also so much hope. "I didn't know what's going to happen," she murmured. "Neither do I," he replied. "But I'll stay to find out." And that night, for the first time, Valerie didn't feel afraid of what might come. The days at the Emerald Coast Resort became a pleasant routine. Every morning, the twins woke up excited about what they were going to do. It was no longer just a luxury resort for them. It was the place where they felt their family beginning to heal. Gabriel became part of their days. He took them to breakfast, taught them to swim, played building sandcastles with them, and even helped them with small math assignments. Valerie watched them lessened, less afraid, and more amazed. What surprised her most wasn't that Gabriel was there, but that he did it so naturally. He seemed to have been born to be a father, even if he had discovered it late. One night, the children insisted on reading their favorite story before bed. Valerie took the book and sat on the bed, but Matthew interrupted. "Can Gabriel read it?" Gabriel blinked, surprised. Valerio looked up and met his gaze. He waited for her approval. She nodded slowly. "All right, Gabriel sat between the twins awkwardly, taking the book in his hands. At first, he read in a low voice and without much intonation, but when the children looking at him enthusiastically, he changed his strategy. He began to make funny voices for each character. The children laughed so hard they could barely stay lying down. When the story ended, Thomas looked at them with hopeful eyes. "Are you going to be here tomorrow too?" Gabriel looked at Hitchin, then turned to Valerie. She avoided his gaze but said nothing. "Of course," he finally replied with a smile, and "Always," Gabriel said. The question tugged at his heart. "I'll do my very best, little one." That night, Valerie went out to the balcony with a hot cup of tea. Gabriel approached silently. "Did I earn Ito Day?" She looked at him, confused. "What?" "A little more trust." Valerie barely smiled. "Let's just say I'm no longer planning to kick you out tomorrow." They both chuckled softly, and for a few minutes, they only listened to the wind rustling the palm leaves. No more words were needed, but not everything was so simple. The media continued to pay attention. Every time Gabriel went for a walk with the children, someone took photos. When they went to the restaurant, some people watched and whispered. Social media continued to be full of theories. Some said Valerie was an opportunist. Others said Gabriel was just trying to clean up his image. Valerie tried to ignore it, but it was difficult. One afternoon, as they walked along the beach, an older woman approached her with a phone in her hand. "Are you Mr. Hayes' children's mother?" Valerie stopped. "Uncomfortable, yes. Why?" "Nothing. It's just you were all over the news." "What a heartwarming story. I hope he doesn't abandon them again." The words, though not ill-intentioned, hit her hard. Gabriel also heard them and tensed. That night, Valerie was quiet during dinner. And afterward, when the children were asleep, she confronted him. "What's going to happen when this ends?" "What do you mean?" "When the media attention dies down? When you go back to your life, your companies, your meetings, your flights, are you going to leave us again?" Gabriel looked at her seriously. "I'm not leaving, but if you're referring to my work, I can't just disappear." "I'm not asking you to disappear," she replied, her voice firm. "But I also didn't want you to play at being a father for just a few days again." He nodded slowly. "You're right, and that's why I resigned." Valerie frowned, surprised. "What do you mean you resigned?" "I submitted my resignation letter to the board. I'm no longer the CEO of Hayes Capital." She looked at him as if she couldn't believe it. "Are you crazy?" "Maybe, but I got tired of living just for an office. I know what I want now, you, the children. The rest I can rebuild. But if I lose them again, I wouldn't be able to fix that." Valerie put her hand to her mouth. Tears trembled in her eyes. "I can't believe you did that. I did it for me and for you. I never imagined that 3 such small people could teach me so much." Valerie looked at him for a long time. Then she approached and hugged him for the first time since she had seen him again. It was a shy, short hug, but charged with contained emotions. The next day, Gabriel had no commitments. He got up early, prepared breakfast with children, even though he burned the toast, and then took them to the pier to fish. Valerie accompanied them. They spent the whole day laughing, splashing, and playing. Upon returning to Thavala, Thomas appeared with a drawing in his hand. "Look, Mummy." Valerie took it. It was a drawing of 4 people holding hands. Her, Gabriel, Thomas, and Matthew. Above it, he had written in crooked letters, "Our family." Valerie felt a lump in her throat. "Do you like it?" Thomas asked. She nodded, stroking his hair. Very much, my love. That night, the children fell asleep quickly, and Gabrielle, as was now customary, stayed on the terrace. Valerie came out with 2 cups of tea. I'm not used to this, she said. To what? To not being alone. Gabriel looked at her tenderly. You'll never be alone again if you don't want to be. Valeria sighed. There's something you don't know. Since you left, they kept asking about you. Every time they got sick, every time they got into mischief, they asked if their daddy would come back. Gabriel closed his eyes, feeling his sheath tighten. I'm so sorry, I know, but don't say it anymore. If you're really going to stay, prove it with actions. I will, he said without hesitation. Every single day, time passed. And finally, the vacation came to an end. The resort was no longer just a place of rest, but the scene of an unexpected drawing and a new opportunity. Gabriel, Valerie, and the children board a return flight. She lived in a small town outside Geneva, quiet and surrounded by mountains. Gabriel decided to accompany them, though he didn't know what would happen next. When they arrived, he didn't go back to his old life. He settled in a modest Hotel Neuf neighborhood and began visiting the children every day. He took them to school, picked them up, helped them with homework. Little by little, he earned a space in their routines. Valerie didn't stop him. She watched him analyzing every gesture, every reaction. She wanted to make sure it wasn't a passing act, but it WASN, single quotes to Gabriel learned to cook, though he still failed with eggs. He became familiar with children's songs and school schedules. He even accompanied Valerie to the market one Saturday morning and helped her carry the bags as if he had done it all his life. One weekend, Thomas had a fever. Valerie was scared as always, but this time she wasn't alone. Gabriel arrived with medicine, fresh water, and held them in his arms for hours until he fell asleep. Thank you for being here, Valerie whispered. Gabriel looked at her with bright eyes. I'll always be here. And this time, she believed him. Let's do another little joke for those who only check the comments section. Type the word chocolate in the comments. Thus who made it this far will get the joke. Now, let's continue with the story. On a cloudy afternoon, Valerie was sitting on her porch, a blanket on her lap, and a steaming cup of coffee in her hands. She gazed at the lake, pensive. Gabriel approached with a quiet step and sat beside her. He said nothing at first, just watched her. Are you okay? She asked at last. Valerie sighed, though her expression said otherwise. She was just thinking about everything that had happened over the years. It's incredible how life comes full circle. Gabriel rested his elbows on his knees, looking straight ahead. I think about it every day, too. It's hard for me to understand how I drifted so far from what really mattered. Valerie glanced at him. Sometimes I feel like if you had arrived a month earlier, a year earlier, everything would be different. Maybe Hesed, but maybe not. Perhaps we needed this path so long, so complicated to value what we have now. She remained silent. Then she passed him the coffee cup. Here, it's hot. Gabriel smiled and took a sip. It was cold. Both his heart didn't feel it. That was the new routine of their lives. Simple, real. Little by little, Gabriel stopped being the visiting dad and became simpler dad. Thomas and Matthew no longer asked if he was going to sleep over. They knew Elle would be there. One morning while preparing breakfast, Thomas drew a small house on a piece of paper. Inside were him, his brother, Valerie, and Gabriel. Above it, he wrote in his childlike handwriting, "The house with Dad." Gabriel saw it and couldn't contain his emotion. He knelt, hugged the boy, and said, "Thank you, champ. You don't know what that means to me." Valerie witnessed the scene from the kitchen. Her eyes welled up, but she smiled. She was starting to believe it. She was starting to trust. Days later, as they walked through town after dropping the children off at school, Gabriel stopped in front of a small, cozy coffee shop. He motioned for Valerie to come in. "What are we doing? I just want to talk to you." They sat at a table by the window. Gabriel took an envelope from his jacket pocket and handed it to her. Valeria looked at it, confused. "What's this?" "Open it." She did so slowly. Inside was a formal letter with a real estate agency's letterhead. It was an application to rent a house just 2 streets away from hers. Valerie looked up. "Are you moving?" "Here," Gabriel nodded. "I don't want to be 5 minutes away by car. I want to be close, share your everyday life, be available always. I'm not going to intrude on your space, but I want them to know they can count on me, that I'm not leaving." Valerie remained silent, moved. No one had ever done anything like this for her. "I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, just let me show you." That same weekend, Gabriel moved in. The house was modest, with a front yard and a white picket fence. The children helped unpack, happy to have him so close. "Now we can go see you every day," Mathusha said, "and you can come for dinner whenever you want," Thomas added. Valerie just watched them in silence, but with a smile she couldn't hide. One day, while the children were napping and Gabriel was mowing the lawn of his new house, Valerie approached with 2 lemonades. "Then when you go to the gym?" "I'm not used to this, but I like it." She sat on the edge of the porch. "Do you miss your old life?" Gabriel thought for a second. "I miss some people and certain comforts," he admitted. "But no, I wouldn't trade this for anything. I feel more complete here mowing the lawn than in any skyscraper." Valerie watched him in silence. Then she looked away towards the garden. "And what's next?" "Whatever you decide," she sighed. "It's hard for me to believe all this is real. Sometimes I'm afraid to wake up and realize it's just a dream. It's not. I'm here, Valerie, and I'm not leaving weeks past." The routine was no longer improvised. Gabriel took the children to school in the mornings, worked part-time from home, on personal projects, and in the afternoons dedicated himself entirely to his children. Valerie gradually resumed her career, knowing she no longer had to do it alone. One night, after putting 3 children to bed, Gabriel invited her for a walk along the lake shore. The sky was clear, and the stars reflected in the calm water. "Do you remember when I told you I wanted to write a book?" he asked, breaking the silence. "Yes, I think I have the title now." "Oh, what is it?" "How to Learn to Be a Father in 7 Years of Absence." Valerie laughed, amused. "Sounds pretty honest. I want to write it, not for fame or for money, just so my children can read it someday and understand how much I messed up, but also how much I love them." Valerio looked at him in silence. Then she approached and hugged him. It was no longer a test. It was not an experiment. It was real. Gabriel held her tightly as if he never wanted to let go. Days later, while they cooked together as they used to, Thomas walked into the kitchen with a school paper. "Mummy, Daddy, today they asked me to write about my hero." Valerie knelt to his level. "And who did you write?" It was Thomas smiled. "You too." Gabriel Wasselin, his eyes gleaming. "Valerie, too." "Why us?" Because even though you sometimes argue, you're always with me. You take care of me. You make me laugh. You teach me. Because now we're a family." Valerie hugged him tightly, on the verge of tears. Gabriel gently stroked his head. "Thank you, son." That night, Gabriel sat at his desk. He turned on his laptop and began to write these first lines of his book. The words flowed easily. "I never thought I could love to people I never asked to have so much, but who today are the most valuable things in my life, and to the woman who gave me the opportunity, Toratorn. There are not enough words to thank her." And as the keys clacked in the quiet night, he knew that this time there was no going back. Summer in Switzerland began to fade, leaving cooler afternoons and somewhat grayer skies. Despite the weather, Valerie in the children's home was filled with a different kind of warmth, one that didn't come from Thiessen, but from something much deeper. A family that, against all odds, was building itself from the ground up. One afternoon, while Matthew painted in the living room and Thomas read quietly, Gabriel entered with a medium-sized box in his hands. Valerie looked at him curiously from the kitchen. "What's that?" "A project I started years ago," he replied, "and that I finally finished." The box contained bound copies of his book. The title was simple: Return. Valerie took one of the copies and began to leaf through it. She quickly recognized passages from their story. Tough moments, memories she had tried to bury. "Did you really write all this? Every word?" "And I didn't publish it. He just had a few copies printed for us, for the children, for you, so that when they are old enough, they understand everything that happened without lies." Valerie closed the book and held it against her chest. She said nothing. There was no need to. Shortly after, Gabriel organized a small dinner at his house. He invited some neighbors, some close friends he had met in town, and of course, Valerie and the children. Everything was very informal, with homemade food, laughter, and anecdote tested made them forget that there had once been pain between them. "You cooked this, right?" Valerie asked with a mischievous smile as she tasted the rice. "Yes," he replied proudly. "And I did it without burning it. A miracle." Both laughed. The children ran through their garden, playing hide and seek with other neighborhood kids. It was a scene that seemed straight out of another world, one where they had never been lost. When night fell and the guests left, Gabriel remained sitting on the porch, watching the dim garden lights. Valerie sat beside him, as on many previous nights. "I never thought we'd end up here," she confessed. "Me neither," he replied. "But I wouldn't change a thing. If everything I lived led me to this moment, I would live it again." Valeria rested her head on his shoulder. They remained like that in silence for a long time. Weeks later, the twins put on a school presentation. It was something simple, with music, drawings, and children's words about their families. Valerie was nervous, Gabriel more than ever. When Thomas went on stage and took the microphone, everyone fell silent. "My family isn't like others," he began. "For a long time, it was just Mummy, Matthew, and me. But now, Daddy is also here. And even though it took a long time to get here, he came to stay, and I love him very much." Valerie covered her mouth, tears in her eyes. Gabriel felt his heart swell. Matthew also spoke, saying something simpler, but just as profound before. "I thought Daddy's left. Now I know some come back, and that's okay." The applause was spontaneous, warm, full of emotion. That day, Gabriel needed no more validation. His sons had accepted him, and that was all he needed. One Sunday, as they walked by the lake, Gabriel stopped. He took Valerie's hand firmly. "I want to ask you something." She looked at him, intrigued. "What?" a second chance at everything. "To do things right, to form this family with you, and yes, also this." He knelt. From his jacket, he pulled out a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed a simple, elegant ring with a small diamond. "I don't want to promise you perfection or that. I won't make mistakes, but I can promise you that I will never turn my back on you again. That you can count on me every day, that these children will have a father, and that you will have Simeon, who values you as you deserve." Valerie remained motionless, the air filled with emotions, memories, fears, and hope. "You're an idiot," she finalized, her eyes filled with tears. "But yes, I want to try." Gabriel stood up and hugged her. At that instant, the children ran to them and joined Thembrus. It was as if the whole world had aligned just for that moment. Thruding was small, only close family, some neighbors, and the friends they had made in the village. It was held on the lake beach, right where Gabriel proposed. Valerie wore a simple white dress, and the children wore suits, each with a small cushion in their hands. They carried the rings. During the ceremony, Gabriel took her hands and said, "Thank you for not closing the door, for giving me a second chance, for letting me come back." Valerie replied, "Thank you for truly coming back, and for not giving up." After the "I do," the children clapped loudly. The guests smiled, and in that instant, nothing else mattered. Months passed. The family adapted to their new life with a mix of joy and patience. There were easy days and not so easy days, but they always ended up together, dining at the same table, sharing stories, building memories. Gabriel continued writing. He finally published his book, though with changed names. It was an unexpected success, but this time he wasn't carried away by fame or the spotlight. He continued living in the same town, with the same routine, with the same values he had learned the hard way. One afternoon, while playing in the park, Matthew approached Valerie. "Mummy, can I ask you a question?" "Of course, love. Anything you want. Is Daddy always going to be with us?" Valerie looked into his eyes, stroking his hair. "Yes, honey. This time, forever." Gabriel approached, hugged them both, and together they continued, walking along the path. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in golden and pink hues. Everything was perfect, not because it was easy, but because it was real. And in the midst of that silent stroll, Valerie thought about everything they had lived through, the pain, the absences, the fears, but also the hope, the forgiveness, the love that resisted the passage of time. Because in the end, that was the most important thing. A family that reunited when they least expected it. A woman who was a mother, guide, and strength for years. A man who put aside his pride to become a father, and to children who unknowingly united your worlds with their innocence. Love doesn't always arrive as one expects. Sometimes it hurts, sometimes it's lost, but if it's true, it always finds its way back.